Saitama, Toji Zenin, Might Guy. On the surface, these icons of anime have nothing in common. One's a bald guy that likes to be a hero for fun, another has hair but rocks an Edgar haircut for some reason, and the last one can't even bother to pay child support. But there is one crucial attribute that links all of these three guys together. Each one was rejected by the world that they live in for one reason or another. Worlds where talent and status conquered all. Something that all three had neither of, but despite this, they said, might as well give it all I got anyway. This is a mindset that a special kind of character lives by, someone that operates outside the power system of their own universe, and still manages to be an absolute menace. The type of character that the untalented and unremarkable, like myself, can point to as a shining example of what is possible, what's attainable through sheer defiance and determination. This character brings fists to a gunfight and still wins. This character is a breaker of human limits. Today we'll call them the Anomaly. But who are these characters and what makes them so iconic and timeless? Well, let's talk about it. Like I said at the top, the characters we'll be focusing on today have one thing in common: their drive and determination to be strong despite their varying limitations. But what led each one to reach the peak of raw power in their respective verses is a different story. That being said, a deep dive into each one of these fellas and what makes them tick is necessary to understand why this character trope is so impactful and timeless. And what better person to start with than the one who rejected the powers of the world he lived in the most violent way, the gambling menace himself, Toji Zenin.
もう全員じゃねえ。向こうに入ったんでな。今は伏黒だ。いいぜ。
The world of Jujutsu Kaisen is easily the most unforgiving of the three we'll be talking about today. It's one where your value in said world is determined right from birth. At the start of the series, Satoru Gojo laid it out as plain as day himself, when he says that a Jujutsu sorcerer's overall skill is about 80% inherited talent, meaning if you were born with low amounts of cursed energy, or weren't born with the power to destroy entire cities on a whim, you were shit out of luck. And no talent means no influence. That's why this toxic societal structure originated from the three great sorcerer families, the groups with the most strength and therefore the most pull of anyone else. At the bottom of the top, I guess you could say, is the Kamo clan. Now there's a reason they're in the big three. Their inherited blood manipulation technique is a powerful one, don't get me wrong, but out of the three, they're just not that guy.
You guys all think you're so much better than me.
At the very top is the one-man clan known as Satoru Gojo. There's other people in his clan, but we've never seen any of them, just Gojo. But he's honestly enough. The self-proclaimed honored one is the first sorcerer to be born with the sacred six eyes technique and the limitless curse technique in over 500 years. The combination of which allows Gojo to do things like teleport, absolutely blast shit away, pull it in again, and then literally wipe it from existence with the flick of his finger. I mean, the man was born as a god, with his presence felt throughout the entire Jujutsu world before he even opened his eyes for the first time. Now, the reason I'm detouring a bit to glaze a man that is no stranger to glazing from the anime fans is because he forms the antithesis to the guy we're really here to talk about, and their eventual clash will be one of several we'll be looking at, where the ideological battle of talent versus hard work is put on full display. We'll get to that in a second though. Speaking of second, in the middle of the hierarchy of the three big Jujutsu families is the Zenin clan, the one that Toji was born into. Now for the Zenin clan, the Gojo clan is that friend she tells you not to worry about. They hate the Gojo clan because of their clear superiority in strength and status, leading them to become obsessed with harboring strength at all costs, and alienating anyone that they see as a stain on their bloodline. And there was no stain bigger for the Zenins than Toji was. See, in the world of JJK there exists heavenly restrictions, which is a binding vow that is placed on someone at birth. To not get too deep into the explanations, heavenly restrictions tend to give a person something at the cost of something else. For Toji in particular, he was born with a heavenly restriction where his body produced zero cursed energy. As a child, his fellow clan members would look at him as someone less than human. Their hatred for him got to the point where one day, they took him to a large room. In this room was a pit full of ravenous cursed spirits that Toji would be thrown into and left for dead in. However, thanks to the second condition of his heavenly restriction, he made it out alive, with only the scar that you see on his face. See, in exchange for not having a drop of cursed energy, Toji was given superhuman senses that allowed him to perceive curses, and a body that was tough enough to resist them. Now, I know what you might be thinking. If he was born a superhuman, then how is he not considered gifted, and the opposite of the kind of character we're trying to highlight here? Well, you have to understand that this is within the frame of his own universe. Of course, if Toji was born here in the icky real world, he would be a damn god among men. But in a story where having access to cursed energy means having access to crazy shit like being able to conjure domains that have can't miss conditions baked into them already, on top of having the convenience of regrowing lost limbs through reverse curse technique, being able to simply see and hear really well doesn't seem very broken, does it? Even with these physical gifts, that alone didn't shape Toji into the overwhelming force capable of taking out special great sorcerers that he would become. The constant resentment and abuse from his clan justifiably left him with a deep resentment for the Jujutsu world and everything they stood for. This resentment is what pushed him to hone his skills and become a world-class assassin. He got so strong that the Zenin clan wouldn't dare to mess with him because they knew that they were all still alive merely on his whim. By the time he was an adult, he left the Zenin clan altogether and became an assassin for hire. Eventually, he'd be feared by the Jujutsu world as a whole and gained the nickname the Sorcerer Killer. See, Toji's climb to the peak of human limits is a classic example of something all characters like him share. They sit firmly on one side of an age-old argument, the debate of nature versus nurture. This is a bit of a tricky concept to break down, so who better to help break it all down with than my old pal Wikipedia? It wouldn't be an anime essay video without quoting it at least once, after all, right? Here it says, nature versus nurture is a long-standing debate in biology and society about the relative influence on human beings of their genetic inheritance and the environmental conditions of their development. And then there's a bunch of other stuff we're not going to care about right now. In simple terms, the side of nature believes that someone is destined to be the person they always were meant to be, right from birth. It's predetermined destiny. Those on the side of nurture, however, believe it's your environment and life experience that shape who you end up becoming. I'm not here to argue which is right or wrong, but the point is that the anomaly character will always stand on the side of nurture, because quite frankly, they have to. When you're born predisposed to fail in your world, what else can you really do but believe that there's a path to the top from the basement that you started in? That's what Toji did. He rejected the Jujutsu world and all of its traditions, because they stood firmly on the side of nature, therefore going against his very ideology that got him this far in the first place. And this deep hatred and rejection would eventually lead to a fight that becomes the literal embodiment of nature versus nurture. This is when we get the battle to the death between Toji and Satoru Gojo. In many aspects, this fight was the culmination of all of Toji's life experience on full display. He brought the reconnaissance and planning skills he gained from years of hunting sorcerers. He also made use of the strongest cursed tools at his disposal, along with having a sharpened body from years of combat. On the flip side, he was up against the yet-to-be-tested Gojo. To that point, Satoru had never faced anyone who could even give him a decent fight. He's never had to put much effort into anything. He was born at the top after all. This was a clear-cut battle of talent versus experience. And man, did talent catch the fade in this one. All of Toji's preparation, raw strength, and speed was way too much for Gojo to handle, and he was absolutely brutalized by him. So in this case, nurture won out over nature, finally giving some validation to Toji's rejection of the world that rejected him. He had just taken down the crown jewel of the Jujutsu world. Well, despite all this, Toji then fell immediately under a sickness called Jobber syndrome, one that he couldn't recover from, aka the plot wanted him to die. On the brink of death, Gojo learns reverse curse technique and takes on Toji once again. This time though, his newly awakened powers easily overwhelmed Toji. Although he had an opportunity to escape, he so badly wanted to spit in the face of the Jujutsu world that he committed to take down Gojo at his strongest. Unfortunately, this stubbornness would lead to his death, after he was hit with an inescapable hollow purple attack. However, being the absolute menace that he is, even after having half his torso blown out, he remained standing even after his final breath. In this case, the anomaly character fell short of reaching the absolute peak of the world's power system, but honestly that's usually how it goes. After all, what mangaka would go out of their way to flesh out this cool and intricate power system just to have a guy that can punch really hard come in and make it all meaningless? Well, actually, one did, and we'll be talking about that manga in a bit, but first, what set Toji apart from the many examples of characters that fall into this anomaly category was simply that the man was a heartless villain, with no regard for other human life, and only cared about money and Megumi a little bit, I guess. For that reason, Toji can never represent the anomaly character in its truest sense, at least not in my opinion. No, to me, this type of character's drive to become strong comes from their reliance on the human will and one's own open-mindedness to change and grow. Toji, on the other hand, was fueled by hatred and held a resentment to the world that looked down on him to the very end. If he wasn't so prideful and stubborn about his hate towards jujitsu, he could have fled and lived to be a menace for another day. See, the anomaly character at its essence represents the strength of the human spirit, a representation of how far working hard and having a positive mindset can take you. At their core, this character is kind and builds up the characters around them in the most crucial moments. The next guy we'll be talking about has every one of these qualities. The same guy that pushed the boundaries of human potential to their absolute limits against the big bad of the series and technically won. He's not just any guy, he is Might Guy. Might Guy is one of the more beloved characters of Naruto for good reason. His energy in every scene that he's in is infectious. That being said though, I feel like he's often underrated and overlooked when talking about the best characters in the series overall. And that's not very fair to my boy. The man doesn't get nearly enough credit for everything he's done in the series. In the world of Naruto, the role of a teacher is crucial in building up the strongest ninjas, as their guidance significantly helps these aspiring shinobi reach their full potential. Naruto sensei Kakashi is usually always at the top when we talk about the best sensei in the series, because aside from being the main character's teacher, he's also got the benefit of being a naturally gifted and intelligent shinobi. Of course, having to train naturally gifted students like Naruto and Sasuke and molding them to become the most powerful in the world further cements his legacy as the best teacher in the series. But could he have done the same with an average kid? One that couldn't even use ninjutsu, and therefore is completely closed out of the main power system of the series, essentially the toughest kind of student. Well, Might Guy did just that with Rock Lee. In fact, Rock Lee was the perfect student for him, because Might Guy started from the mud just like he did. Unlike other prominent characters in the series, the Bushibrow sensei had no innate talent, no crazy bloodline powers and eyes, and didn't use ninjutsu or genjutsu. How he rose to the ranks of jonin is solely the result of his diligent training and hard work, and above all else, his belief in what he calls the spring of youth, a mantra that was instilled in him at a very young age by his absolutely goated father. Guy is the son of Might Dai, who everyone in Konoha called the Eternal Genin. In Naruto, this is the entry-level title given to a shinobi when they first become a ninja. Most genin transition to the next level of chunin by the time that they become a teenager. Therefore, the title of Eternal Genin was seen as an insult considering he was a middle-aged man that couldn't even move up the ranks. However, Dai didn't mind the nickname and was just happy that he was so popular around the village. He taught Guy to stay optimistic, believe in the power of youth, aka the spring of youth, and become a taijutsu master. Taijutsu refers to a shinobi's hand-to-hand combat skills, so since Guy was bad at using ninjutsu and genjutsu, he would work tirelessly to improve his martial arts skills and conditioning. Guy tried his best to live by his father's teachings, even though he had his doubts at times. Deep down, he thought the words of encouragement from his dad were mostly empty pep talk, but he still deeply loved his father either way, and would fight anyone who mocked him for his genin status. One time it even put him in the hospital. Although Guy was down on himself for being beaten so easily, his dad told him he was looking at it the wrong way. He actually considered it an absolute win for Guy, since he was fighting for someone he cared about. Again, this might just sound like empty pep talk, but you're about to learn that my boy Might Dai, in fact, stands on business. In other words, he acts on what he preaches. One day, as Guy and his genin team were out on a mission, they were attacked by the 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. Fortunately, Might Dai shows up just in time to protect them. But I mean, what could the Eternal Genin do against the 7 most powerful swordsmen in the world? Well, it turned out that Dai wasn't as powerless as everyone thought. Sure, he couldn't use ninjutsu like everyone else, but being the positive and determined person that he was, he just put all of his time into working on his taijutsu and fully unlocked one of the most powerful techniques in the entire series, the 8 Gates release formation. We'll talk about the 8 Gates in a bit. All you need to know right now is that opening the 8th Gate of Death temporarily gives the user incredible physical power at the cost of their own life. Dai opens the 8th gate and tells his son to flee. He then goes on to kill over half of the 7 swordsmen. In a 7-on-1, he took half of those motherfuckers out. Although his life was about to end, he knew his son would do just fine without him, having taught him all that he knew, including the 8 Gates technique. However, seeing how dangerous it is to open the final gate, he always told Guy that it could only be used as a last resort, when protecting the people you love most. He sacrificed himself to protect Guy, staying true to his word to the very end. Now the task of embodying and passing on the spring of youth was on Guy's shoulders alone. Guy tried to get into the Ninja Academy, but failed the entrance exam. Kakashi noted that he wasn't surprised since Guy lacks the skills in ninjutsu and genjutsu. While he could have took this as a dig at him, Guy appreciated Kakashi for taking notice of him and giving him some pointers. Well, he eventually got in as an alternate, and graduated, joining a team led by Choza Akamichi. They took part in the Chunin exams and Guy made it to the very final stage, but lost to Kakashi in the one-on-one matches. From their childhood, Guy considered Kakashi as rival. He respected the hell out of Kakashi and thought that someone as strong as him would be the perfect bar to set for himself. Guy was totally set on showing that he could keep up with Kakashi, even though Kakashi was a natural-born genius in both combat and ninjutsu, while he was just a normal dude with an iron spirit. He started challenging Kakashi to all sorts of random stuff, from eating competitions to rock, paper, scissors, to counting who can pee faster at the urinals, you know, ninja stuff. Kakashi couldn't care less at first, but Guy kept at it. Kakashi would beat him at everything, but over time, their score actually got pretty tight. The whole rivalry thing turned into a solid friendship as well. When Guy stepped in to help out Team Minato on a mission, he was ready to sacrifice his life for Kakashi when they were fully surrounded, but thankfully they lucked out and managed to hold their own until backup arrived. Following the death of Rin Nohara, Guy was sent to tail Kakashi during a mission. Turns out that was a pretty solid move because Kakashi went into a full-on breakdown and had a panic attack when he used his Chidori. Guy then swoops in like an absolute legend and saves him, then drags him back home. After the 4th Hokage's death, Guy wanted to join the Anbu to help Kakashi deal with his depression, but he was turned down for not having enough darkness inside of him. After seeing Kakashi straight up kill shinobi from the Land of Woods, he ends up asking the 3rd Hokage to take Kakashi out of the Anbu, and suggested that he lead a team of genin to help him find his kindness again. In every sense, Might Guy is the best kind of friend, propping you up at your lowest points and pushing you to be your best self. And this is what the Anomaly character does for everybody around him. The friendship between Might Guy and Kakashi isn't just a heartwarming one though. It serves to give us yet another example of nature versus nurture being represented through two opposing characters. Unlike with Toji and Gojo though, this one isn't filled with super emo undertones and ends in death. As I said before, the Anomaly character almost exclusively sides with nurture, and in this case, nurture eventually wins. And I'm not just saying that because Guy tightened the score in all of their competitions. Kakashi would later finally admit to Guy that he had surpassed him, but we'll get to that goated moment in a second. Well, it was clear that Guy had took his father's life lessons to heart and worked hard on his physical talents, while also passing on the good vibes. But now it was time for him to pass these teachings onto someone else. At some point, Guy heard of a boy in the academy that couldn't use ninjutsu or genjutsu. This boy, Rock Lee, caught Guy's attention because he saw himself in him, and encouraged Lee to keep training and work harder than anyone else. He led Team Guy, with Lee, Neji Hyuga, and Tenten under his wing. Although he would give each of them an appropriate amount of care, he of course put extra interest into Rock Lee. He went all in on helping Lee become a great ninja only using taijutsu, and was basically passing on the same never say die attitude his own sensei and father had taught him. Under Guy's guidance, Lee, Neji, and Tenten all thrived. While throughout the series we see him pop in here and there to help the good guys, usually having at least one quip about the springtime of youth sprinkled in here and there, but as the series went on, he showed us that much like his dad, he wasn't all talk either. His lack of ninjutsu and genjutsu skills allowed him to channel all of his potential into training his taijutsu, which eventually helped him become the strongest taijutsu fighter in the series. Since taijutsu is all about physical strength and technique, he had pushed his body harder than anyone else, and perfected some deadly fighting techniques. This included moves like Asakujaku, or Morning Peacock, and Hirodora, or Daytime Tiger, which we actually saw in his fight against Kisame of the Akatsuki, when he opened the 7th gate and defeated him. This fight showed just how far training your body could really take you, and it was a fat W for all the gym rats out there for sure, but this was nowhere near Guy's biggest moment. No, that came towards the end of the series, when he faced off against Madara in the 4th Great Shinobi World War. At this point, Madara had become the most powerful being in the series. By the time Madara became the Ten Tails Jinchuriki, he had some insane abilities, like rapid regeneration, and the ability to create clones that exist in a dimension that almost no one can access or even see, making them completely undetectable. Not to mention ocular abilities up the wazoo. My man Might Guy, on the other hand, only had his fists and the springtime of youth behind him. By that point in the war, Madara had become impervious to everything besides senjutsu and taijutsu. The only person who could take him on was Guy with his 8 gates release formation. Earlier, he had fought Madara with the 7th gate of wonder, and failed to take him down, so Guy wasn't messing around this time. Seeing how dire the situation was for everyone, he decided to give his life and open the 8th gate, much like his father did years ago. Now I know I've mentioned the 8 gates a few times now, but haven't really explained what they are. So to give a very brief breakdown, the 8 gates exist in order to limit the flow of chakra within an individual's body. Normally, individuals can use no more than 20% of their body's full potential. This is the brain's way of protecting the individual from harming their body through overexertion. With training, however, individuals can learn to remove these limiters, referred to as opening the gates. With each opened gate, individuals are given access to more and more of their body's chakra, thus increasing their physical strength and speed at the cost of damaging their own bodies. Each gate is located at a different point of the body, with the 8th gate of death being located in the heart. To open the 8th gate, the user has to actually puncture their own heart. Once all the gates are open, this is called the 8 gates release formation. While open, the user's heart pumps at maximum speed, granting them a power 100 times greater than they are usually capable of. The reason one dies after using the 8th gate is because the form causes the user's blood to become so hot that it straight up becomes steam that seeps out of them, eventually cooking themselves from the inside out until they become a pile of ashes. Although on a time limit, Guy momentarily became the strongest hand-to-hand fighter of all time. He gained superhuman abilities like the Evening Elephant, which let him shoot pressurized air cannons in all directions. Even with this massive boost, Guy still could not get an edge on Madara, so he had to resort to his last and most powerful move, Night Guy. The Night Guy is a forbidden taijutsu of the highest level, and can only be performed after opening all 8 gates. When Guy initiates the technique by saying a mass, he emits an enormous amount of red steam, the so-called steam of blood, and his chakra manifests into a red burning dragon, surrounding his entire body. Shouting flow, he then dashes forward at such an extreme speed that the space ahead of the user is distorted, making it impossible for the target to defend against it. Guy then deals a devastating kick on Madara that completely destroys his torso. Under literally any other circumstance, Madara would have died right then and there, with Might Guy accomplishing something not even all of the Kage combined could do. But unfortunately, the plot needed Madara to survive, so his Hashirama cells regenerated his body on the brink of death. Like with Toji, the plot is undefeated, and Might Guy can't really do much about that. Fortunately though, the plot armor came to rescue him as well, and Guy was revived by Naruto, who had essentially become Jesus by that point. Regardless of plot conveniences though, Might Guy went toe-to-toe with a disgustingly overpowered character like Madara, and he beat the shit out of him. No crazy jutsus, no plot convenient reveal that he's some kind of reincarnation of a god or something. He was just a normal guy that wanted something so badly that he willed it into existence through hard work and a positive mindset. To him, the springtime of youth wasn't a literal time of year or something, it was a state of mind. As long as you live life with passion and purpose, it doesn't matter how old you are. Anyone can experience the springtime of youth. Yeah, it sounds super corny, I know, but I gave you guys all the edgelord stuff with Toji a bit ago, so deal with it. All that being said, Might Guy truly represents the anomaly character in every sense, except the fact that he ultimately lost to the power system that rules his world, despite going beyond what was even humanly possible. Again, I don't hold it against him, it's just the way that the series was written, not his fault. But with our last guy, he pushed so far beyond what's humanly possible that he hasn't lost a fight since he was in middle school. And this includes a fight against a planet-busting alien as well, so he hasn't faced no chumps. No need to give this one a super cool introduction, we're already like 20 minutes into this video. The character I'm talking about here is Saitama, aka Caped Baldy, aka One Punch Man, aka the Bald Baller. This guy. As unremarkable as he looks, he's actually done something truly remarkable, in that he's managed to fully overcome the power system of his universe, defeating everyone he's come across using only his physical abilities. Much like with Might Guy, Saitama reached the absolute peak of physical strength in his universe through sheer will and hard work, not relying on inherited techniques or fancy abilities. The difference is, this series has an author that is willing to fully commit to this trope, and even channels it through his main character. Up until this point, characters like Toji or Might Guy have been relegated to being highlighted only in a single arc at best. With One Punch Man, we finally get to see what the anomaly character can really do, without becoming a casualty of the story's plot. For that, I very much thank the creator of the series One. In fact, I made a whole video about him, you can check that out here actually. But anyway, Saitama might have reached godly levels of strength, being able to split oceans and jump from the moon to Earth in a few seconds, but it's not like he was born that way. On the contrary, he had about as average and sometimes unfortunate of an upbringing as anyone else. During his middle school years, Saitama was a normal kid who didn't seem to have much passion for anything. By his third day of middle school, he had already started to fall behind due to missing homework assignments, something his teacher embarrassed him in front of the whole class about. He then tells Saitama to meet him in his office after school. Still pretty bummed about the whole situation, he starts walking to his teacher's office when he runs into two school bullies that have been terrorizing the new kids. After they demand his wallet, Saitama, already in a bad mood, refuses and tries standing up to them. While they make quick work of him and tear up his school uniform before taking 200 yen from his pocket. And for those of you that don't know, which is probably most of you, this is like $1.25 in the United States, showing that he was also relatively poor. Before the bullies can walk away with the stolen change, a piggy bank monster comes crashing in, demanding that the bullies deposit all of their coins inside of him. They of course do it, fearing for their lives, as it turns out that one of the bullies was taking money to pay for his younger brother's school lunches. Whether it was this new information or the fact that Saitama was sick of being pushed around, he gets up and angrily chases after the piggy bank monster, demanding his 200 yen back. Well, after chasing the monster for a few minutes, it eventually stops and blasts Saitama into a wall, taking him out for about an hour. To make matters worse, he still had to go visit his teacher after class, who continued to put him down and didn't believe why he arrived so late. Fed up with the entire day and honestly life in general, Saitama has an interesting inner monologue. Maybe I'm just not fit to live in this society. I don't have the faintest idea of how to live in this world. All I ever do is lose. Will I even be able to live my life properly if I'm this weak? Well, fortunately for him, he eventually overcomes this fear and resentment for the world, and becomes strong enough to protect the weak himself. But unfortunately, it doesn't come until he spends another 10 years enjoying more of life's shitty surprises. We don't meet Saitama again until he's 22 years old, walking home like some kind of lifeless zombie in a suit. He had just failed yet another job interview, and was simply ready to give up on everything. During his walk back home, he runs into a monster named Crablante, who apparently ate so much crab that he turned into one. He's surprised that Saitama isn't running away like everybody else, and Saitama goes on to explain that he's had tons of job interviews and been turned down every time. And to be honest, he's at a point where he doesn't feel like life is worth living anymore, and wouldn't mind dying by his hands. However, Crablante notices that they have the same dead eyes, and for that reason he'll spare his life. Either way, his main target was a butt-chinned kid that drew nipples on his chest with permanent marker while he slept. So Saitama continues his walk home, and ends up running into the butt-chinned kid. Then Crablante shows up soon after. Although Saitama had decided not to get involved, he suddenly dives to save the kid from the monster at the last second. He then goes on to narrowly defeat the monster, and experiences a rush he's never felt before. This whole altercation reminded him of his childhood dream, to become a hero strong enough to protect those who aren't strong enough to make it in a world filled with monsters and disasters, much like he was. So from that day on, he trained his body to its absolute limits. He would turn off the heat in the winter and the AC in the summer in order to strengthen his resolve. Not gonna lie, I've done that out of necessity a couple times, so I guess my resolve is stronger because of it, or whatever. He also followed a strict regimen of 100 push-ups, sit-ups, and squats, and a 10-kilometer run each and every day. Eventually, all of his training caused him to lose his hair, but along with his hair went his limits as well. See, it was revealed later in the series that Saitama had become so unfathomably strong because he had become the only living being to have removed his limiter, giving him access to a bottomless well of potential. Now, this is probably a good time to break down what a limiter even is, because it is important when talking about the power system of the series as a whole. A limiter is a theoretical barrier that restricts the physical growth of any living being. The idea is, immense and overwhelming power eventually becomes unbearable for one's body, leading them to become mindless and crazed monsters. To prevent this from happening, God imposed a limit on the growth of all living things. Everyone eventually reaches their upper limit, where they become unable to develop more strength no matter how hard they try. However, it's possible for an individual to remove their limiter, which results in the development of immeasurable strength. The limiter kind of follows the same premise of the 8 gates, and also a real life phenomena where the brain blocks us from using our full physical strength. Like with the limiter, this is to preserve our own bodies. In our world, it's known as the central governor theory. That being said, unlike most anime or manga, there are several very different ways to achieve power in One Punch Man, all falling under the confines of what the limiter allows. You have those that achieve their strength through old-fashioned training, some that are born with mystical abilities like having Esper powers, and others that achieve strength through body modification, like creating robots and cyborgs. On the flip side, overwhelmed by intense negative emotions can turn into monsters and gain power as well. So in a world filled with weirdos and aliens, Saitama has become so strong that none of these things interest him at all. After 3 years of intense training and beating every major villain there is to beat, the fire that burned inside of him when he beat Crablante had fizzled out due to boredom. I mean, he already accomplished the goal of most shonen protagonists, to be the best at this or that, or fulfill some kind of lifelong dream. That's why instead of heavily focusing on Saitama's journey throughout One Punch Man, the author chose to focus on how Saitama's actions and ways of life influence everyone around him. Throughout the series, Saitama's immeasurable power attracts heroes and villains alike, each hoping to learn what it truly takes to be strong. More often than not, they walk away with a much more simple answer than they expected. That's because in a world filled with cyborgs and power-granting gods, it's honestly shocking to find out that reaching Saitama's level of power is even possible without any of that stuff. He shows them that simply being human is enough, that having the resolve to rely on yourself and not take any shortcuts is all you really need to get to where you want to go. As campy as it is, we see it motivate the various characters that seem to stick around Saitama. And although he's generally a pretty emotionless guy due to being at the top by himself for so long, it seems that all these supporting characters are starting to slowly bring him back down to earth. He's got a roommate now, someone to game with, and friends to enjoy a hot pot with, whether he wants them there or not. And in this sense, we truly see how the power of the anomaly character can affect everyone around him. It makes everyone better. It makes everyone in the story, and including the reader, want to improve, to be the best version of themselves. The anomaly character comes in many forms, from Toji's edgy persona fueled by hatred and money, to Might Guy's relentless positivity and energy. But I think the whole show and don't tell route of storytelling with this type of character is my personal favorite, and that's why I enjoy Saitama so much. This video wasn't a competition between the three or anything, just thought I'd share my own opinion here, and I want y'all to share your favorite character that fits this category as well, because like I said, they exist everywhere. Reminding everyone what old-fashioned hard work can really do for you, while using the power of push-ups to satisfyingly kick the shit out of the most powerful characters in the series.